Well, it's great to be joined on the show now by Rhidian Lewis, who is the Apprenticeships lead at the University of Bedfordshire. And we're going to be talking all things apprenticeships because this time of year is where it really becomes very important, because maybe you've just got your GCSE results, maybe you're deciding what to do next. And there's lots of options, lots of ideas, lots to think about. But something to definitely consider is an apprenticeship, and this is why Rhidian has joined us to kind of explain what that's all about, because it's something that you might have heard. Maybe the information that you've had from your school hasn't been as clear as it could have been, or maybe you've found something online, you've watched some videos, and you're kind of a little bit overwhelmed with all of the different options and things to think about. So Rhidian is going to give us a little bit of clarity on that. And the University of Bedfordshire is a fantastic place to do your apprenticeship, because you've got those connections with local companies and you can get people the best apprenticeship for what they want to do. So let's start right at the beginning. What is an apprenticeship?
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. Okay, I do spend quite a lot of my time demystifying the world of apprenticeships as distinct from what you can expect to experience as a student. The easiest distinction that I can make between the two paths is that an apprenticeship is a job with guaranteed training, whereas if you're following a student path, you are primarily studying, and as a part of your course, you may get the opportunity to engage directly with employers for internships or placements or guest lectures. So there will be opportunities in both pathways to experience the work environment. But an apprenticeship is a job. It is formal employment of which there is an element of guaranteed training. So accessing an apprenticeship as a 16-year-old, as a 17-year-old, as an 18-year-old, or any part within your lifetime, because they're not time-bound, is different from applying through the traditional route of working UCAS and joining the university through the formal application mechanism. So that's the main distinction that I try and make for anybody that comes along to the talks that I give at schools or sixth form colleges.
And I think that's what really appeals to a lot of people, because, I mean, speaking for myself, when I got to my GCSEs, I kind of felt like I was ready for the world of work. I wanted to get straight out there and get stuck in. And a lot of people do want to get straight to work. They don't want another couple of years of studying, maybe even longer if you're going on to university or to higher education options. With an apprenticeship, you are getting straight into the workplace, getting stuck in, learning on the job. But this is a modern way of doing it where you actually get a qualification at the end of it.
Yeah, and I like the emphasis there on the word modern, because apprenticeships have been around for hundreds of years. Historically, they've been aimed at the skilled trades, and they still are today. But the modern apprenticeship, which came into existence in 2017, allows the opportunity to work and study in a range of subjects that weren't traditionally associated with apprenticeships. So accountancy, law, computer science, nursing. These subjects have become part of the language of apprenticeships rather than the traditional trades, which still exist, like bricklaying, plastering, scaffolding, etc. They're still there, but obviously they are not the environment which is most closely associated with universities. So as a university, we support apprentices gain higher qualifications. So those which would contribute or lead to a named degree program.
This is what's so exciting about it, I think, because a lot of the time you think that you need to get the qualifications to get a good job, but actually with this you're getting the job straight away, and then you still get an equivalent qualification that you're learning as you're doing the job. So, particularly with things
absolutely. The opportunity to get work experience adds so much to you as an individual that can then take forward into your career. Getting any type of work experience as part of your academic studies is exceptionally valuable. So when you turn it into an apprenticeship, you are working at least 4 days a week in the working environment, and gaining then the knowledge and the skills and understanding the behaviours in a model which allows you to then bring new knowledge into the workplace. So I will qualify that. I said at least 4 days a week in the workplace. Different universities deliver apprenticeships in conjunction with the demands of an employer. So some employers will allow you to spend 2 days at the university and 3 days in the workplace, but all apprentices must get at least 6 hours of new knowledge, new skills, and an introduction to the behaviours through their training provider on a week-by-week basis.
And I think that's also very important, because that protects your experience of doing the apprenticeship, so you know you're actually going to be taught stuff. You're not just going to be, the bottom of the pecking order and asked to do all the simple unskilled jobs.
You raise an interesting point there, because I was asked a question a while ago. Okay, well, it's an apprenticeship, but is it still the same as a degree? Well, the answer to that is absolutely yes. The University of Bedfordshire has gone down the route of ensuring that whatever apprenticeship you are doing with it gives you credit towards the achievement of a higher qualification. Now, you may start off on a program which would be equivalent to a component part of a degree, so it may come out at the end of the certificate or a diploma, but those qualifications can be banked, and then you can build upon those qualifications to get your bachelor's degree. Master's programs now under the apprenticeship route have gone under the government review, but we are still offering opportunities for students to study up to an undergraduate degree program, and in some cases postgraduate qualification, but they are specifically linked to particular industry areas.
And of course, when you've got that degree, you've also got the work experience, so that puts you ahead of somebody that's just got the academic side.
Very much so. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk across you there, but I get quite excited about this. Because it benefits both the apprentice and the employer. As an employer, if you're taking on a young person and putting them through an apprenticeship program, by and large, that apprentice will stay with you for the duration of that program, which in some cases could be 4.5, maybe 5 years of duration. They're gaining work experience and the qualification, so they're adding value to the organisation with every stage of learning that they go. They'll be bringing new techniques, new knowledge, cutting-edge technology into the organisation. So as an employer, you're benefiting for it during the time of the apprentice. Once the apprentice is completed, you've now got somebody that knows not only the subject area, but their workplace inside and out, and very often is ready for the next step up in the organisation to then continue to add value and potentially move the organisation in new directions.
So do you find a lot of apprentices stay on with the company that they've done their apprenticeship with after they've completed the programme?
In many cases, yes. Obviously, there are some that they take the apprenticeship that they've achieved and they look for different opportunities, but by and large, they stay with the employer. And some apprenticeships are very attuned into the employer environment. Nursing, for example. If you're an apprentice and you're going through the nursing apprenticeship, there is a more than there's a greater chance that you're going to stay with the person that sponsored you and then work with them for a considerable period of time. So we do see across the sector that many of those who started in an apprenticeship will stay as an employee with the organisation with which they started.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's part of the incentive for the employer, because they want to invest in somebody, train them up, but in a way where it's structured and it leads to a qualification rather than doing it all on their own.
They become fit for purpose very, very quickly. So immediately, you've got somebody, you've landed your apprenticeship. You're now working for an employer. You're getting a salary. You're working. You're being educated. As a package, it's incredible. And the likelihood is that you stay with the employer because you understand the fabric of the organisation in which you're working. That's not to say somebody will stay for, there's no such thing as a job for life. You're not necessarily going to stay with an employer for the next 40 or 50 years, but you may stay with the employer and move into different roles depending on the size of the employer, or there may be an opportunity to go elsewhere. But in the immediacy after completing the apprenticeship, employers and apprentices or past apprentices do tend to stay with the employer for at least the short-term horizon.
That's amazing. So what I want to try and clarify is what the process is. So somebody enrolls on an apprenticeship course. Do they decide where they're going to do their apprenticeship at that point, or do they enroll in a particular subject and then you'll help place them with an employer, or
Right.
do they can they be more proactive with that if they've got a place in mind that they want to work?
So this comes back to the distinction that I made between it is a job with guaranteed training rather than training with the opportunity for work experience. You're effectively applying for a job. So universities, whilst we support employers in terms of the training element of an apprenticeship, you do not apply to a university for an apprenticeship. So big employers, be it public sector or private sector, large employers or SMEs, you would be applying to those organisations in response to an advert that they have placed requesting apprentices to join them. Now, that's the way which most young people would experience. And the way I'm caveating that around young people is that there is also the opportunity for people who are currently in employment to then become apprentices. So they've got the job, they now need to gain additional training. They can then become, in inverted commas, an apprentice and then go along to their local university for a day a week or block release to then gain the knowledge and skills to go forward. So in terms of the point of application, you are applying for a job essentially, which is labelled an apprenticeship. And it is the employer that ultimately decides which university they are going to engage with. So employers local to the University of Bedfordshire may say, we want to keep things local for us, so it'll be convenient for our apprentices to come to the University of Bedfordshire, and we would then be contracted effectively by the employer to deliver the training element of it. The benefit to the employer is that if they're a large employer and they're paying into the government's levy, they pay no more. So effectively it's free training. They've already paid the government, and therefore they don't pay on top of that. The cost, of course, is that they have to release their employee for at least 6 hours a week, or it works up to about 278 hours per year. If you're a small and medium enterprise, notionally you have to pay 5% of the cost, but you're not a levy payer, so you're not actually paying anything into the government's pot. But there are opportunities by which big employers can subsidise that, so employees within the SME sector can get the training for nothing, as long as it's related to the job that they're doing and there's the opportunity for learning in the workplace. So that's the way in which, perhaps that's a convoluted way of saying that you apply for the job and then you come to the university, rather than applying to the university and hoping then to be placed within it.
So are those jobs easy to find? Do you have a directory of apprenticeships opportunities that are available on your website or anything, or do you just have to look out for them in the usual places?
What we present on our website are the language around apprenticeships is slightly different from what it is around students. They're referred to as apprenticeship standards. So we on the University of Bedfordshire website identify those apprenticeship standards which we are currently delivering for employers. And that can be anything from adult nursing right the way through to computer science, to project management, to chartered manager. And these programs lead to either higher qualifications in terms of certificates, diplomas, or full degrees. And that information is provided for both those interested in becoming an apprentice and employers that would like to engage with the university. There are a number of ways in which people can find out about what apprenticeships are available in their area. There's a government portal which you can quite easily get into and have to look to see what apprenticeships are available within your geographical region, and that portal will tell you whether it's being delivered by a university or a private training provider or an FE college. There are, at the most rudimentary level, you can do a Google search. If you're interested in project management apprenticeship, Google, and that will tell you the list of employers that are looking to recruit apprentices during their annual cycle. UCAS is now starting to provide information. Now, UCAS is the Student Service for Applications to Universities. They are starting to provide information about what apprenticeships are available, but you do not apply for an apprenticeship through you. It's still a direct application to the employer. So big, small organisations, they take the opportunity to advertise in a traditional sense, traditional being web-based, and will invite applicants to complete application form and in anticipation of going through the applications right.
Fantastic. And then obviously it's down to the applicant to perform well in the job interview, as you would do in any job interview, because these organisations are then going to take you on board. They're committed to working with you for a period of time. So it's a big decision for an employer choosing an apprentice that's going to work for the company and actually be positive. But then I guess while you're doing your apprenticeship, you're subject to all the usual employment law. So if there's gross misconduct, you could be out of a job and out of a course at the same time.
But you are an employee, and if you fail to live up to whatever standards are required of employees within that organisation, for whatever reason, then you will be sanctioned the same way as any other employee would be. There's criminal activity, gross misconduct, as you say, then the employer might decide that they no longer want to maintain you, and as a consequence of which you would be removed from employment and therefore from the apprenticeship. You can only be an apprentice if you're actually in employment. So that's the two sides of the equation are on-the-job training, so you are learning while you are working in the employer environment, and off-the-job training, which is provided by the training provider, which could be university or FE college or a private training provider. So there's two elements to it. So, but you are a full employee. You are entitled to holiday, sickness pay. You're entitled to the minimum wage, at least the minimum wage for your age bracket. And in some cases, that makes a very appealing package, if you like, for a young person who would be looking at not only getting a salary, but when you consider the costs of higher education as a student, then your employer is bearing the cost of training for you.
That's very important because it can be very expensive to go to university nowadays, and if you can actually be earning money to be training,
and that's what lots of people are actually looking for in terms of they don't really want to move directly from their A-levels or BTEC courses or whatever experience they've got and go straight into a university setting. If they want to go into the world of work, then obviously, I'm the University Apprenticeships lead. I would advise all young people to look at least the opportunity of taking up an apprenticeship. In terms of the cost of going to university, I speak as an educator and as a parent. From a parental point of view, I look at it as an investment. Then, you are paying for your education, and there are additional costs that go with it, which over time you will recoup in the career that you will have going forward. And that would be the case for an apprenticeship as well. They're not paying the cost of tuition. They will ultimately gain qualification, should they stay the course, and it will propel them through their career.
And obviously, from the employer's point of view, it's a great way to recruit staff and get them trained up and be able to kind of mould your next generation of staff with the company ethos and your values and all of that kind of workplace.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There is a huge appetite amongst those who are going now into tertiary education, so post-16. There's a huge appetite amongst that population for apprenticeship opportunities at 18 and onwards.
So if you're an employer and you're looking at getting your first apprentice on board, and this is all a bit kind of new and scary, obviously they can get in touch with you at the University of Bedfordshire and you'll guide them through the process. What are some of the things that you're going to have to get in place to be ready to take on your first apprentice? And do you have to do it at this sort of time of year in September, or can it happen any time of year?
It can really happen at any time of year. Now, different universities will have a different cycle at which they will start academic provision. And I suppose employers do have to bear in mind that it's not viable for universities to put on an entire apprenticeship course for just one apprentice. So we're always looking to bring either employers together so that there's a viable cohort of learners, or if there's opportunities for employees from different companies to come together within one learning group. So there's a lot of positive learning that can go from learner to learner. So as a university, we're more than happy to take any inquiry from employers about how they will set up an apprenticeship process. Obviously, the main thing, realistically, that an employer has to be is registered as a company with Companies House, and there is a small piece of admin that needs to be done to register as either a levy-paying organisation. If you're above, if you've got a wage bill above £3 million a year, then you'll already be paying into the levy for some of that back to train your staff. If you're an SME, then we can advise you on how to register on the government portal, so funds can be made available to help support you. We can also help with identifying opportunities by which the 5% charge to SMEs can be provided by big companies that haven't fully spent their levy. There's quite a lot of that goes on within the sector. It's known as levy transfer. So I would encourage any organisation to get in touch with us to get some specific information about their need. It does help if the organisation has got a function that can support the apprentice, and in that sense, somebody that is able to advise an apprentice on what information they would need to gather for themselves. So in order to come on to a programme, the apprentice would need to, first of all, undertake an analysis of the skills that they already possess, the knowledge that they might already have about the role, because for government purposes, we're not allowed to retrain people that have already trained. It has to be new learning for them. And again, we can help with all organisations to ensure that that process is as smooth as possible for them. In terms of the University of Bedfordshire, traditionally we have 3 intake points per year. Now that applies to both of our apprenticeships that we deliver, so September, January, and potentially in June. We do have courses, apprenticeship programs rather, that run what we call a carousel model. So every 12 weeks we can accept new learners onto the program, who predominantly exist within some of our business offerings, and that gives a little bit more flexibility into the.
That's fantastic. So I think there's lots of reasons why it makes complete sense for businesses to get involved with taking on apprentices, and obviously they can get in touch with you at the University of Bedfordshire to find out everything that they need to get the programme in place, get things up and running, and start interviewing their first candidates. How can people contact you?
Well, we've got our own email address, which is apprenticeships@beds.ac.uk. Obviously, if people want to go on to our website, which is beds.ac.uk, They can navigate to a specific landing page which deals all with apprenticeships, so they can see the range of apprenticeships that we've currently got on offer. And we'd be more than happy to take inquiries from people who are interested in either coming along as apprentices. We're always happy to talk to people about how they can become an apprentice, or from employers who are interested in offering what is essentially free training for their employees.
Yeah, it sounds brilliant. It's one of those things. It's just like it's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you? And you can find all the details and all the answers through the University of Bedfordshire, and there's a link on our website as well at horizonradio.com. Thank you so much for joining me today, Rhidian, and hopefully we'll have lots of new apprentices joining in the cohort over the coming months and the course of the next year. Thank you very much for your time and your expertise.
Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.